Picture this, 1997. Apple, the once mighty tech titan, is teetering on the brink. Their products, let's just say they weren't exactly flying off the shelves. Their stock, plummeting faster than you could say Newton message pad. The company was hemorrhaging money, and the future looked about as bright as a burnt-out pixel. Enter Steve Jobs, the prodigal son, returning to the company he co-founded after a dramatic exile. He had been unceremoniously booted out over a decade earlier, but now he was back, armed with a vision, a will of iron, and a turtleneck collection that could make a fashion designer weep. Jobs was no stranger to taking on seemingly insurmountable challenges. After all, this was the man who, in a Los Altos garage, had challenged the tech establishment and changed the world. Now he was back to do it again, to breathe life back into the company he loved, even if it meant ruffling a few feathers along the way. This, my friends, is the story of how Steve Jobs pulled off one of the greatest corporate turnarounds in history. A tale of innovation, determination, and a healthy dose of that Jobsian reality distortion field. Buckle up, because things are about to get interesting. Now, you might be thinking, how did Apple, a company on life support, manage to lure back its exiled founder? Well, it all started with a little company called Next. See, after being shown the door at Apple, Jobs didn't just slink off to a tropical island with a margarita. No, he founded Next, a computer company with a penchant for sleek design and powerful operating systems. Next was like the cool, artsy cousin Apple never knew it had. A bit niche, maybe a little ahead of its time, but with a certain undeniable charm. And Apple, desperate for a technological lifeline, saw an opportunity. They decided to acquire Next for a cool $429 million. It was a bold move, a risky gamble, but it was also a chance to bring Jobs back into the fold. The acquisition of Next wasn't just about acquiring technology, it was about acquiring talent, about bringing back the visionary who had built Apple from the ground up. Jobs returned initially as an advisor, but everyone knew this was no ordinary consultancy gig. He was like a tech-savvy emperor-in-waiting, ready to reclaim his throne, and reclaim it he did. Within a year, Jobs had maneuvered his way into the interim CEO position, proving that while he might have been away, he hadn't lost his touch. Apple, under his renewed leadership, was about to get a serious makeover, and the tech world held its breath, wondering what the maestro had in store. The Next acquisition wasn't just a sentimental reunion, it was a strategic masterstroke. You see, Next had something Apple desperately needed, a powerful modern operating system called Next Step. This wasn't your dad's clunky OS. This was a sleek, sophisticated system that would eventually become the foundation for Mac OS X. Jobs, with his uncanny ability to see the potential in emerging technologies, recognized that Next Step was the key to Apple's future. It was the missing piece, the technological foundation upon which he could rebuild the company and usher it into a new era of innovation. The return of Jobs wasn't met with universal applause. Oh no, this was Apple, a company known for its passionate fans and equally passionate critics. Some saw Jobs' return as a hostile takeover, a betrayal of the company's values under then CEO Gil Amelio. The boardroom was a battleground, with Jobs' demanding leadership style clashing with the established order. He was never one to shy away from confrontation, and his vision for Apple's future required bold, sometimes unpopular decisions. The old guard was about to learn that when Steve Jobs said jump, you didn't ask how high, you just jumped. Jobs wasted no time in shaking things up at Apple. He was like a human tornado, sweeping through the Cupertino campus, leaving a trail of bewildered engineers and executives in his wake. His first order of business? A top-to-bottom restructuring, a corporate cleanse designed to cut the fat and refocus the company on what truly mattered, making insanely great products. The casualties were swift and significant. Entire product lines were axed, projects deemed extraneous were shown the door, And yes, there were layoffs. It wasn't pretty, but Jobs was never one to let sentimentality cloud his judgment. He was a surgeon wielding a scalpel, cutting away the dead weight to allow the healthy tissue to thrive. Before Jobs' return, Apple's product line was a sprawling mess. They had dabbled in everything from personal digital assistants to game consoles, spreading themselves thin and confusing customers. It was a classic case of too many cooks in the kitchen, and the result was a bland, uninspired menu. Jobs, with his laser-like focus, knew that Apple needed to simplify, to define its core competencies and stick to them. He famously reduced the company's product line from a dizzying 350 products down to just 10. Yes, you heard that right, 10. It was a bold move, a drastic reduction, but it was the shot of adrenaline Apple desperately needed. This wasn't just about cutting products for the sake of cutting. It was about strategic realignment. Jobs understood that by focusing on a smaller number of products, Apple could devote more resources to each one, ensuring that they were truly exceptional. It was a classic case of less is more, and it was a philosophy that would guide Apple's product strategy for years to come. This ruthless product pruning wasn't just about efficiency. It was about sending a message both internally and externally. To the employees, it was a clear signal that the days of mediocrity were over. To the world, it was a declaration that Apple was back, and they were laser-focused on creating products that would redefine the tech landscape. But Jobs didn't stop at restructuring the product line. He wanted to reshape the very soul of Apple, to instill a new sense of purpose and identity. He understood that Apple wasn't just a technology company, it was a cultural force, a tribe of rebels and dreamers who dared to challenge the status quo. And so, the Think Different campaign was born. It was a bold, even audacious marketing campaign that celebrated the misfits, the rebels, the round pegs in square holes, the very people who, like Apple itself, dared to see the world differently. It was a rallying cry, a call to arms for anyone who had ever felt like they didn't quite fit in. A reminder that it was precisely those who dared to be different, who had the power to change the world. Now imagine this. It's August 1997, Macworld Expo in Boston. The crowd, a sea of Apple devotees, buzzes with anticipation. Steve Jobs, back at the helm of Apple, takes the stage. A hush falls over the audience. Jobs, with his trademark charisma, starts talking about Apple's future, about rebuilding, about innovation. Then he drops a bombshell, an announcement so shocking, so unexpected, that it sends ripples of disbelief through the auditorium. Apple, he declares, has struck a deal, a partnership with their arch-nemesis, the evil empire itself, Microsoft. The gasps were audible. The murmurs of disbelief rippled through the crowd. Had Jobs lost his mind? Had he betrayed everything Apple stood for? After all, this was the company that, in its iconic 1984 Super Bowl ad, had portrayed IBM as Big Brother, a monolithic corporation stifling creativity and innovation. And now, here was Jobs, embracing their biggest competitor on stage in front of the world. But Jobs, ever the strategist, knew exactly what he was doing. Apple, on the verge of collapse, needed more than just a technological boost. It needed a financial lifeline, a vote of confidence from the market. And who better to provide that than their biggest rival, a company with pockets deeper than the Mariana Trench? The deal itself was as audacious as it was unexpected. Microsoft, in a move that surprised even the most seasoned industry analysts, agreed to invest a cool $150 million in Apple. Not only that, but they also committed to continuing development of Microsoft Office for Mac, a crucial software suite for Apple's user base. This investment wasn't just about the money, although Lord knows Apple needed it. It was a strategic masterstroke, a chess move designed to achieve multiple objectives. The financial injection provided much-needed stability, while the continued support for Office for Mac reassured Apple's customers, especially in the business world, that the company was here to stay. But the Macworld crowd wasn't quite ready to embrace the enemy. As Jobs announced the Microsoft deal, a chorus of boos erupted from the audience. Yes, you read that right, boos. These were Apple loyalists, people who had stuck with the company through thick and thin. And they were letting their savior know exactly what they thought of his deal with the devil. Jobs, unfazed, stood his ground. He understood their anger, their sense of betrayal. He calmly addressed the crowd, explaining that this partnership, however unconventional, was essential for Apple's survival. We have to let go of this notion that for Apple to win, Microsoft has to lose, he declared. With Apple's financial ship somewhat steadied, it was time for Jobs to unleash his secret weapon, a radical new computer that would redefine what a personal computer could be. In 1998, the iMac burst onto the scene, a brightly coloured, translucent, all-in-one machine that looked like it had beamed down from a spaceship. Gone were the days of boring beige boxes. The iMac was a playful rebellion against the mundane, a splash of colour in a sea of technological conformity. It was as if Jobs had taken a sledgehammer to the industry's aesthetic sensibilities and emerged from the rubble with a device that was both whimsical and undeniably cool. But the iMac's appeal went beyond its eye-catching design. Jobs, obsessed with simplicity and user-friendliness, had created a machine that was as easy to use as it was to look at. It was a computer for the rest of us, a machine that didn't require an engineering degree to operate. The iMac was all about breaking down barriers, about making technology accessible and enjoyable. It came with everything you needed built in, from the monitor to the modem, and it even had a built-in handle, making it easy to move around. The iMac marked the beginning of Apple's design renaissance, a period where aesthetics and user experience became as important as technological prowess. Under Jobs' watchful eye, Apple transformed itself from a company known for its engineering chops into a design powerhouse, a trendsetter that would influence everything from consumer electronics to furniture. Jobs understood that design wasn't just about making things look pretty, it was about solving problems, about creating products that were both functional and emotionally resonant. The iMac was a testament to this philosophy, a machine that was as much a work of art as it was a technological marvel. The iMac's success was a much-needed shot in the arm for Apple, proving that Jobs' vision for the company was more than just hype. It outsold expectations, becoming the fastest-selling computer in Apple's history and revitalizing the company's image. But more importantly, the iMac marked a turning point in Apple's history. It was a declaration of independence, a signal to the world that Apple was no longer content to be just another computer company. They were here to challenge conventions, to push boundaries, and to create products that were as beautiful as they were innovative. Steve Jobs' journey back to Apple wasn't just about rescuing a company. It was about reigniting a fire, a passion for innovation that had been flickering in the wind. He reminded the world that technology wasn't just about circuits and code. It was about human connection, about empowering people to create, to share, to change the world. Under his leadership, Apple transformed from a struggling tech company into a global icon, a brand synonymous with sleek design, intuitive user experience, and a relentless pursuit of what Jobs famously called the next big thing. He left behind a legacy that extended far beyond the products he created, a legacy of audacity, creativity, and a belief that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, one person with a vision could indeed change the world. The story of Apple's resurgence under Steve Jobs is a masterclass in innovation, a testament to the power of focus, strategic thinking, and an unwavering belief in one's vision. It's a story that teaches us that sometimes the greatest successes emerge from the ashes of near failure, that even in the darkest of times, a spark of brilliance can ignite a revolution. Jobs' legacy continues to inspire entrepreneurs, designers, and dreamers around the world, a reminder that it's okay to be different, to challenge conventions, and to never, ever settle for anything less than extraordinary. So the next time you hold an iPhone in your hand or marvel at the sleek design of a MacBook, remember the man who dared to think different, the man who rescued a company and in doing so changed the world, Steve Jobs.